For more on Vice President Harris and former President Trump's final message ahead of the election, let's bring in today's political panel. With me now is Quell Strategies founder Machalagh Carr and Democratic strategist Theryn Bond. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
So I want to start with a clip from former President Trump about what's at stake in this election. I'll get you to react to it.
She's not a smart person. These guys are very smart, and they're very streetwise, and they're very tricky and evil and dangerous. And if she becomes the President of the United States, which I can't believe can happen, I don't think this country is going to make it. I don't think we'll ever be. I think just really bad things will happen to our country.
How do you respond, Theryn?
You know, I think people would say the same thing about somebody who's convicted of a felony when there have been so many conversations about how the criminal justice system works or doesn't work depending on who it caters to. But ultimately, he went to an audience that he thought he would have favorability. I think depending on who you speak to on either side of the aisle, and even those third-party folks, they have particular things of interest that they want to see. And some people believe former President Donald Trump is someone who threatens democracy. But if you ask conservative folks, they'll say that that's the case with Vice President Harris. But it depends on what your individual priorities are.
All right, I want to show the audience some recent headlines that caught our eye from Axios. Behind the curtain, Dems fear they're blowing it. Then from the Hill, Democrats fear race may be slipping away from Harris. What do you make of that, Machalagh?
If the rhetoric that he is a threat to democracy was going to work, the polls would not be this close. The only thing we have heard continuously from the Democrat side of the aisle is that he is a danger and he is a threat to democracy. And they have been saying that for 4 or 6 years, depending on how you count. What I think the polls are showing is that people still, and they're always honest when you ask, they care about immigration, they care about inflation, they care about the economy, they care about whether they're able to pay their rent. And those are issues that the Democrat ticket just refuses to talk to them about on substance.
All right, Trump running mate J.D. Vance made the Sunday rounds today. I want to play a quick clip from him.
Whether it's the cost of groceries, whether it's the southern border, and importantly, whether it's the chaos all over the world, I think really the theme of this election is that Kamala Harris broke things in the world, in the country, and Donald Trump will fix it.
What do you make of that argument, Theryn?
I mean, former President Donald Trump is not Bob the Builder, so he's not the end-all, be-all fixer. He's certainly not Olivia Pope. He's running against somebody similar, though. I think that if everything that former President Donald Trump did when he was, in fact, president was working so well, those policies will still be in place now, but they aren't. And so the difference is that Donald Trump has been president before. Kamala Harris has been vice president. She hasn't had the final say on policies and things that come across her desk. So we honestly don't know. So now we're looking at, do we want what is or has been, or do we want a possibility at a different future?
All right. Interesting argument today from Senator Lindsey Graham. Let's play him.
Michelle Obama's a good person. She's very articulate. But every time the Obamas pick the Democratic nominee, we win. You know, Obama picked Clinton. We beat her.
Does he have a point, Machalagh?
I think he does. Look, the people who are really enthusiastic about wanting to hear from Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris already has their votes. Like, they're kind of baked in, right? They are going to come out. They are going to support. And I think what we hear from Michelle Obama is, what are you guys thinking? If you don't vote the way I think you should vote, then I don't understand this country. And that rhetoric didn't serve her well when she was first lady, and it doesn't serve them well now to continually cover this like it's an 80-20 issue. The country is split, so maybe start talking to people about the issue and stop telling them that they're evil if they disagree with you.
Final thought from you on where we are at this stage of the race?
I think we can't shame vote anybody. People are going to vote their conscience. They want to be able to say they're voting for something and not against something. And right now, what the candidates are both saying is vote against the other person. But they're not really giving America something to vote for, and that's what will win the election come November 5th. How
about a final word from you, Machalagh, where we are?
I think it's going to be a nail-biter and like anything we've ever seen. But I'm kind of excited to see the popular vote shift, because I'm really excited about the conversation post-election on the Electoral College, if it's even close. I'm so excited. I'm so ready for that conversation.
All right. We'll get ready for that. Machalagh, Theryn, thanks very much.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.